Greetings, friends, family, and survivors. Well, stowing some stuff. I'm getting ready to move stuff over to the other side of the Cascades, and I dug out my old school wind Jenny. And this was made by a company 35 years ago in Grants Pass. It's old school and it just plain works. It's got a wood spruce prop with I think that's a copper leading edge stapled on there. It's a brush type. It's on a flange bearing. And there's the blocking diode. It's real simple. It has two wires that come out of the DC generator. And I use a tag line, not a slip ring. And most of the wind that we're going to have in that area is going to come really from about a 200-degree angle. But with a tag line, you can get a 300-degree angle. You lose 60 degrees, but most of the wind is coming from not coming from that area. So this thing actually really works. I've seen it consistently put out 150 watts in, wind like you see here. So if I go up about 60 feet, it's going to be worth its keep. And I have a charge controller for it now because I will no longer be using the TriStar because our battery bank's too far away from the solar array. So that'll free up a PWM charge controller, and I have the dump load already. So I might as well stick it in the air and see what it'll do. I'll probably put a mast above the battery house, go up about 60 feet and let her spin, see what happens. The other PMA that I have, I don't really think it's ever really going to be worth hooking up, but I will test it again where there's better wind. And I think it's probably going to be a wall ornament like it is right now. But this one works. Kind of interesting. The fancy new PMA with the 12-bladed prop and all of this low startup speed and all this crazy stuff, right? And magnets that are just the right angle so there's no cogging and all that. Guess what? If you just get a brush type, there's no cogging at all. It just takes nothing to spin that over. And yes, brushes wear out. Pull them down and change them. It's about $4 for a set of brushes for that thing. Not a big deal. So I think it's worth putting up. And I will certainly let you know when we get ready to do it. So we've got the solar panels locked down in here. Dad made a bunch of little cardboard corners for it. We stacked them in here, and then he came in here and created the whole thing so they can't move around. They can't even vibrate up and down. He's just got them locked down solid, ready to travel. And we're getting our pieces and parts ready. It's a pressure tank there and the well pump. Got the pipe and wire and getting the stuff that we need. I think that's I can't believe how expensive wire is these days. What do you think 270 feet in number 10 3-wire well wire is? It's $267 just for the wire going in the hole. Wow, am I out of the loop if I'm going to be able to build a house or not. So I think the batteries will travel just fine on the wall there. I'll probably protect the inverter, screw it to the floor, and that sort of stuff. Make sure everything travels just as nicely as it can. But I'm collecting stuff and getting it ready because weather is coming. Only have so many dry days left. The other project that we're working on is the Beast. And when I pulled the transmission and transfer case out, they're married, we noticed that the transfer case and the transmission were separating. And I've had that happen before. It's pretty common from 83 to 87 on the diesels. And that's because Ford does not put lock rings on the bolts. And they don't use Loctite. And this backs off. And the problem is when the transfer case and the transmission separate, not only do you lose oil, but it also puts a tremendous amount of load on the output shaft bearing. It squirted the cage. So that's not the end of the world. When I saw that, I said, I better look. And since the, what is this thing? The PTO is off, and I bought a blanking plate because I'm not going to use a PTO right now. So I bought a blanking plate, and since I had the inspection cover off, I looked And what did I find in the bottom of this T19? It squirted a thrust washer under great duress. Wow. Just a second, buddy. You sit. There you go. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. So this is what happens when this separates. This shaft can follow it. And if you pull this shaft out, this one remains. And the end of this shaft and this shaft meet in a needle bearing. And on each side of the needle bearing is thrust washers, right? And so what happened is the shaft separated enough going that way following the transfer case that it squirted that thrust washer out. Bang, right in the bottom. Now there's no needles in the bottom, just the one thrust washer. So that means, give me a minute. That means I've got to rebuild it. So I ordered an American-made complete rebuild kit. Waiting on it. Should come in the mail soon. And it wasn't expensive. All the bearings, synchros, and gaskets. Well, it's under $100. But the problem with these, it's a lot like the new process. The only way to get them apart is when you slide this shaft out, all the needle bearings fall to the bottom of the case. And it's the type, they're not captive. So you have to keep the needle bearings in place when it goes back together with stiff grease. A lot like a new process, only in a new process there's a whole bunch of needle bearings like that. So that's what we're waiting on. Then we can get our truck going. So I've got till March. I've got to have this stuff done by March. And I keep running out of me. But I'm not going to stress about it. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to trust the Lord for the whole thing. And He's provided every step of the way so far. And so the next thing is find a travel trailer we actually can live in for at least one winter. And I talked with a guy today, what does it take to be able to live in a travel trailer? And he's selling one, and he said, oh man, he's done it, and he says this is what you'd have to do, and he gave me a whole list of things. Of course, the number one thing is you got to put a wood stove in it. So the wood stove we have is too big to go in a smaller travel trailer, and our park model trailer is not going to fly. The roof is completely gone. We're going to have to do something different. So we're hunting for an inexpensive travel trailer that Carol and I can spend probably 18 months in. And then I may have to weld up a wood stove to find one that's the size that we need, that would fit. Anyway, that's where we're at with it. All right, enough of me babbling. Hope you guys are having a blessed day, and we'll see you next time.